Sprite Slam Dunk Contest. I wasn't even going to enter the dunk contest, but I had no choice. There was no option. 2K just threw me in here.
No, actually, I watched this video way too many times. I'm not watching something like that again. So what am I going to do? Actually, the NBA draft is on. I'm actually going to watch that. Yeah.
Did you guys hear that the Celtics traded their two best players of the last 20 years for 3 meaningless draft picks and one of the worst contracts in the league? Because it's just starting to...
Yes, there was a time and place where people thought the trade was bad for the Celtics and good for the Nets. So in order to examine that further, I guess what we got to do is go back. With the trade, the catalyst that started off a 5-year chain of events for both teams, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Jason Terry were traded for 3 first-round picks in 2014, 16, and 18, and a swap pick in 2017. There were other players such as Chris Humphries, Marshawn Brooks, and Gerald Wallace that were included in the deal, but in the end, this trade was all about the picks. People saw the Celtics as rebuilding, and taking 3 first-round picks in exchange for the remnants of their 28 championship run after the departure of Ray Allen, and the letting go of coach Doc Rivers for a 2015 first-rounder. These picks were thought to be those that would be in the back end of the draft, below 20, as the Nets were seen as a team that wouldn't bomb like the way they eventually did. See, with the new Russian billionaire owner Mikhail Prokhorov, spending wasn't an issue. Upon purchasing the team, this owner, who is Russian and more importantly a billionaire, gave the Nets a 5-year window to win a championship and publicly stated that he was willing to spend all the money necessary to make that happen. With a team with such an aggressive ownership, it seemed as if the Nets were going to be relevant for a long time. And the biggest demerit in this trade that was seen was Gerald Wallace, who was worth $10 million for 3 years, a terrible contract in 2013. It was 17% of the cap for a player who averaged 7.7 points the year before, the equivalent of giving J.R. Smith $17 million a season. Yeah, trash. The Nets were seen to be making a push for contention, and many saw them as the second best team in the East before the season started, as this starting lineup seemed to be one of the best in the league. The previous core with Darren Williams, one of the best point guards in the league, Joe Johnson, and Brook Lopez, one of the best at his position, was Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, 2 championship-minded players that were both, even though in old age, not too shabby. KG had averaged 14.8 points and 7.8 rebounds the year before at age 36 and was named an All-Star at nearly 30 minutes a game. Paul Pierce averaged 18.6 points, nearly 5 assists, and roughly 6 rebounds at roughly 33 minutes a game. They weren't that washed up, and even if they were, it really didn't matter that much. They weren't supposed to carry the load. With Williams and Lopez taking up most of the offensive duties, Pierce and KG were mostly there to supplement the team with their respective abilities and their championship caliber leadership. Getting rid of that terrible Wallace deal and having Pierce and KG on short-term deals that would clear up cap space if things went awry to continue building around their core, plus the picks that they were giving up only having minor risk, led people to believe all around, from GMs to players to fans, that the Brooklyn Nets actually came away with a good trade. At the time. During the offseason, Darren Williams hurt his ankle in September and missed training camp. Seen as an MVP candidate and the leader of this Brooklyn Nets team, he underperforms in the games that he plays until he suffers another injury. This is a common occurrence for the first half of the Brooklyn Nets season. So during this shaky stretch, the Brooklyn Nets go 10-21, one of the worst teams in the league. And a major part of that was Williams, according to Paul Pierce. With an interview done with ESPN in 2015, Paul Pierce put most of the blame on Williams for the crashing and burning of the team, pointing out that his leadership and play on the court were subpar juxtaposed to his previous expectations. After the season, Williams got ankle surgery on both ankles, which wasn't that surprising, as the Nets asked him to get surgery 2 years before. In his refusal, he played the next 2 years with the Nets, 2013 and 2014, with pain. During this 10-21 run, Brook Lopez is on the floor for the most part, averaging 20.7 points and 6 rebounds. and is the clear-cut de facto leader for the team, until he gets injured for the rest of the season after breaking his foot. So at the end of 2013, the Nets are sort of beaten and battered. Nothing's clicking for them, key rotation players are getting injured, KG is underperforming, Jason Kidd isn't panning out well as a coach, among other things. Until Joe Johnson hits a game winner to start off the new year.
Johnson scores the winner for Brooklyn at the buzzer.
And from then on, the team goes 34-17, the 5th best mark in the league. Guided by more consistent play from Deron Williams, the defense improves from 2nd to last in the league to 12th, and the team clicks. At the 6th seed, the Nets take on the young Toronto Raptors, and barely get by as they win Game 7 by 1 point. And in the second round, they take on the Miami Heat, and things go as expected.
Miami sends Brooklyn home.
Deron Williams in the playoffs severely underperformed, even to the standards of his underperforming regular season self. In the playoffs, he averaged 11.2 points and 6.2 assists, 37% shooting, even going scoreless in a game against the Heat. After losing in 5 to Miami, the Nets season was deemed a failure. Garnett had depreciated considerably, Pierce was at a career low in production, Brook Lopez was still injured, Williams had come out at this point to say that he was struggling. But even with all of that, throughout the second half of the season, they were one of the better teams in the league. According to GM Billy King, the team was to continue to use that and to build continuity with the roster. Then Paul Pierce leaves in free agency to the Wizards, after ownership refuses to give Pierce the money that he wants.
Then I think it changed our thought process, and I think some of the players even thought, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? We were committed and now we're not.
Mikhail Prokhorov, after saying that he was willing to spend as much money as it took, didn't want to spend more luxury tax than he had to, going back on his original no spending limit policies. The next season, the team goes 38-44, and KG is traded halfway through the season to the Timberwolves. Deron Williams had another disappointing season with 13-6 on 39% shooting, a far cry from his stat lines even 2 seasons before. The next year, he's bought out and signed by the Mavericks. The team was essentially dismantled 2 years after the trade. As for the Celtics, they started off their rebuilding season with a bang, with 25 wins, and Jeff Green, the stand in the corner and wait for LeBron to hit you, Jeff Green, led the team in scoring. They used the ensuing 6th pick to select Marcus Smart and the Nets pick to select James Young. Oh, and they added Brad Stevens. The very next season, Danny Ainge traded for Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas, propelling the team, along with Stevens' superb coaching, to a playoff berth that they haven't relinquished since. On the flip side of things, the Nets entered into prime mode. Without a draft pick to tank for, the team brandished a roster that featured Thaddeus Young as the second scoring option and crawled its way to 21 wins. The Celtics got the 3rd pick in the 2016 NBA draft. Armed with a new GM and new head coach, the Nets head out with a bold goal in mind.
We're definitely going to try and win games. There's no tanking, as you put it.
The number 1 pick in the 2000 NBA draft goes to the Boston Celtics.
The Boston Celtics select Jason Tatum.
The Celtics, of course, were on a tear this season, with Isaiah Thomas emerging as one of the NBA's prime storylines, all the way to Brad Stevens quickly becoming one of the top coaches in the league. Losing to none but LeBron James and the Golden State Warriors made it for a pretty promising season in 2018, even with a seemingly not so bad hip injury that IT suffered in the playoffs. But no one had them going anywhere serious, even with the addition of Jason Tatum. So Danny Ainge went ahead and packaged his star and the final asset of the Nets trade to the Cavaliers for Kyrie Irving and acquired Gordon Hayward in free agency. Of course, now we know what happens next. The Celtics, without the services of Gordon Hayward in the regular season and Kyrie Irving in the playoffs, win 55 games and give LeBron a Game 7 with a team led by 2 20-year-olds, both selected with the Brooklyn Nets picks. The Brooklyn Nets are trying to make themselves relevant now, what with the additions of D'Angelo Russell, Jared Allen, among others. But the situation that they're in now, as opposed to the situation that they could be in, is just something to be in awe of. And so, that's the Brooklyn Nets trade then, and the Brooklyn Nets trade now.
67 points with 6:45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down! Wow!